Welcome to TERC Tech Talks with your hosts, Zach, Elise, and Ken. On today's episode, we use Gemini 2.5 and explore a dataset from CODAP on roller coasters. Welcome to our fifth episode of TERC Tech Talks. Today we have a special guest, Jen Noll, and we'll let Jen introduce yourself a little bit later. And again, I'm Ken Rafanan.
Hi, Elise Levin-Güracar.
Joined with our great colleague from TERC, Jen Noll. And Jen, you just came back from a longer stint at the National Science Foundation where you're a program officer. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work there.
Sure, yeah. I was a program officer for 3 years at the National Science Foundation. I worked in innovative technology experiences for students and teachers and DRK-12 and the Data Science Core program, among others, in the Division of Research and Learning. And spent a lot of time reading, evaluating, reviewing proposals, holding review panels, engaged in a lot of conversations about STEM education as a field, data science, as well as AI, because that is, we're seeing more and more proposals coming in around AI and AI literacy. So a lot of conversations about the directions that's going in and what, kinds of things we should be funding and what the landscape should look like.
Today, let's look a little bit more at the data science work and see what kinds of opportunities that AI might present or challenges. And we thought we'd use Gemini today. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Good. All right.
Great. I'll share my screen. This is just the standard Gemini. I'm logged in and I changed it to the reasoning, math, and code Gemini. That's the one that I have turned on, but it's still the free version.
All right. So we were going to look at a data set that's been used. Do you know how many classrooms it's been used in, Jen?
I don't for sure, but I know that, the first time I recall seeing this data set was when I was a graduate student and my advisor, Mike Shaughnessy, was working with Andy Rubin, who is a TERC staff member. And they were using the roller coaster data with Tinkerplot. And I know that Holly Lynn Lee has been using it with her InStep work. And so she has some lesson plans online that are available with resources for teachers through InStep. And so that's another place where you might see it. So I think they've used it with teachers for professional development as well as with middle school classrooms. And so it's one of the sets that's loaded into CODAP. And so a lot of classrooms have access to it. And it's data that middle school students tend to find fun because they like roller coasters. So the data set is, depending on where you get the data from, but the data in CODAP, there's 157 roller coaster data points, and they give you the names of the roller coasters, whether they're wooden or steel, the year that they opened, the city that they're in, whether they have inversions or not, their top speed, their max height, their drop length, or their drop in feet. So there's a lot of data there that can be accessed. Some of it is numerical, and others are kind of qualitative or categorical kinds of information about the data set. So there's lots of ways that students can explore it. They can look at one variable or two variables or multivariables within the data set, so it can increase the complexity and the nuance of the data for the students. So, and then you can also, I think some of the stuff that Holly Lynn Lee has done with this data set is provide video links so that the students can see like a quick clip of the roller coasters going, what it feels like to be in one, and sort of prompt students like, what do you think makes a fun roller coaster ride? What's scary? What's thrilling? And just start to engage a class with those kinds of questions and capture their interest before they kind of dive into the data set.
I looked at it a little bit in advance, and I was very excited because there are roller coasters on there that I've been on. It's not just data that's sort of random, right? Like these are actual things that, whatever, thousands of people have ridden on, right? So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. And actually, you can even, so if you're teaching in the South somewhere, you could, at least in CODAP, I don't know if we can get Gemini to do that. We'll find out today, but you could look at a map of the data, so where the roller coasters exist. And so students could even focus in on areas maybe they live, and they might have had the experience of riding on one of those roller coasters or going on a holiday where they got to ride on one. So yeah, it helps make it more relatable, I think.
It's fun. Well, what if we did this? Elise, what if you just asked Gemini, can you give me interesting data about, I don't know, 50 roller coasters in the US or something?
Sure. I'll say exactly what you said.
And maybe we'll see what it comes up with.
Says searching coaster databases, which maybe that's your coaster database, launching data retrieval. All right. From historic wooden classics to modern marvels of steel, the United States is home to a vast and thrilling collection of roller coasters. Here's a look at 50 notable rides across the country, featuring record breakers, beloved classics, and unique experiences that draw thrill seekers from around the globe. And then it looks like we have a list of roller coasters, the park that they're at, their location, and an interesting fact, like this first one, Top Thrill in Cedar Point, Ohio, the world's tallest and fastest triple launch strata coaster. I have no idea if that's real.
So it kind of just made up its own, and like when we said like interesting facts, it kind of just made up its own interesting fact, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to me, and maybe this would be helpful for listeners to see, but how did it decide on the sample? Like, what process did it use for sampling? And I'm noticing it didn't give us any sort of quantitative variable information. So we don't know the top speeds or the drop or those kinds of things.
Right. So it says, I'm researching interesting data points. So it might have used those data points, but it's not sharing them with us, which is
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was able to show the thinking. It expanded out and it said this is how it said it got there. It said it searched coaster databases. I'm currently engaged in a deep dive into the digital realm, specifically exploring niche websites and enthusiast forums to uncover comprehensive lists of US roller coasters. My goal is to compile a master list from reliable sources, prioritizing those with verifiable data and detailed descriptions. And it said it used Google searches to find lists and databases to find at least 50 coasters. And then it looks like it made us multiple tables. This record-breaking thrills table. And then we also have a historic and classic coasters table. Again, just interesting facts and location, park, and ride. No other quantitative data. Unique and innovative rides.
It's like it jumps to like a marketing angle almost.
That's interesting, Ken. Yeah. I wonder what if we were thinking as educators who want to use this with our class, if we prompted it to develop a data set we could use with middle school students to teach ideas around mean, median, relationships between variables or things like that.
Okay. Ideas about mean, median, and relationships between variables. Okay, let's see what it does with that. I love what it says when it's thinking.
Yeah. I wonder how many people have been through like the data core science kinds of conferences, et cetera, that you've helped organize, Jen, and you're like, well, you should use the CODAP data set, obviously, versus this, whatever. I wonder how many, like, could we spend 1,000 hours working through this, trying to do something?
Yes, I think it will actually take us longer because folks putting this into CODAP, they spend a lot of time curating and collecting this data and then deciding, and they do have missing variables in the CODAP, but that's another, another way that you can start to teach about missing variables within data set. And it seems like in some ways Gemini is trying to have the complete set of data to give you, and so therefore it's going to omit a bunch of roller coasters where maybe that information on the variables you want aren't all available.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like it gave us 20, right?
Gave us 20. It says roller coasters are a fantastic way to make statistics engaging for middle school students. The data provides clear, real-world numbers that can be used to explore key mathematical concepts. So we have 20 US roller coasters with the type, which you mentioned, CODAP has as well, the year opened, height, speed, length, and inversions. We're not fact-checking this, so who knows if these are actually right? But
yeah.
Oh, and then it gave us this little, we didn't ask for this, but it gave us how to use this data in the classroom. It says, this data is perfect for hands-on activities. You can have students work individually or in groups to answer questions that target specific statistical concepts. It has information about mean, median, mode, and range, and some questions that you could ask for each of those, like what is the mean height of the wooden coasters compared to the steel coasters? And then it also has this piece on exploring relationships between variables. These questions encourage critical thinking and help students visualize data, typically using scatter plots, like a height versus speed scatter plot.
It's interesting they gave a generic.
Right.
Instead of using the data they actually have to give an illustration of the relationship.
So I don't know that it's going to work. Elise, can we ask it to produce a scatter plot of comparing height to speed?
Yeah, so can you produce a scatter plot comparing height to speed for the 20 coasters you selected? Initiating visualization plan.
Yeah, this is when these kinds of things just, we'll see what happens. Ugh.
Oh. Kicked off for a day.
Here, do you want me? I wonder how.
I think it probably tipped us over.
Yeah.
Asking for it. It's interesting that it doesn't warn you when you're getting close to using up all of your questions for the day.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about this? What if Jen, can you show us the CODAP site? And then while you're doing that, I can
also bring up Gemini on my computer. Okay. Should we do CODAP first? Is that
sure? Okay. Let's do that.
So is that visible for everyone?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Can you tell us what CODAP stands for and just a little bit about it?
Oh my gosh, I actually don't remember. Common
Online Data Analysis Platform.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Common Online. I forgot the online. Thank you. Yeah, I was like, what does that stand for again? It's been a while. So CODAP is free. It's freely available. And you do need internet to access it. Prior to CODAP, there was a software program called Tinkerplots, and a lot of what you see in CODAP is very similar to the software Tinkerplots. And these programs like CODAP were designed to be really utilized for teaching statistics and data science ideas. You can easily kind of move things and look around. So, for example, let me just move these here for a second because I was playing around with this earlier and just put something in. So you can see that I have the roller coaster data set in here. And I actually recognized a couple of the names from Gemini. So at least some of what we know also exists in this data set. But you can see that it's giving a variety of information about each roller coaster. And so I can click on graph and a graph is going to appear. And it's just a bunch of scattered dots at this point. And I actually have to go up to my table and drag in information in order to look at the data. So if, I was a student and I was kind of new to CODAP as well as new to this data set, maybe initially I'm just looking at one variable. And so I can just click it, drag it down, drop it in here, and I'm going to get this dot plot that shows me information about the top speeds of the roller coasters. I can click on a point within this and you'll see a little tab kind of open or a little note, and it gives that top speed and it tells you the name of the roller coaster. And so if I click on that, you can even see that it's coming up in the table that I have. So it gives me that information too. So it's helpful for students as they're kind of navigating and playing around with ideas. And so I could also click on this menu over here and I could ask it to find the mean for me of the data set, so I would know something about the mean. I could ask it to find the median, and then I could see how close these two were, so a teacher could start to have conversations about which measure might be better than another measure for deciding on what sort of the average speed of the roller coaster data set is. Or why might you use the median in some cases rather than the mean? And let me just play around with something. So I had top speed. I'm just going to put max height in there. You can see that the mean and the median are a little further apart in this plot than in the prior plot. And that's because there's some more variability in this data set for max height. And we have some of these really tall roller coasters, right, that have, over 400 feet or over 300 feet of height to them. And so that's bringing the mean up. So that's a way that you can start to show that to your students. I'm not sure what Gemini would do in this situation and if it would give you that or make it so easy for you to be able to just kind of move things. You can't really move things and manipulate things. So this is just a really useful tool for students to be actively engaged and kind of playing around with the data set. And then you could also start to look at relationships between variables. So comparing the relationship between the height of the roller coaster and the top speed. And so then you could start to look at this and say, oh, is there a relationship? Is it a linear relationship? Do you think it's a strong linear relationship? Those kinds of things. And let me see, I can't remember. Here it is. I could put a movable line on here. So then students could start to play around with where that line of best fit might be. Do I need to bend this down more? They could try to start to create their line of best fit through the data, something along those lines. And then you can actually have it find the line of best fit and see how well of a match you created and start to make conjectures about that. So that's some of the advantages of using CODAP in terms of being able to move the data around. Let's see.
And it's so fast.
It is, yes. And it's, and students become so fluid with this. They're just playing around with the data and moving things. And I believe, let's see. Where am I? I was going to try to get a third variable represented. There we go. So I dragged the whether the roller coaster has inversions or not just into the middle of the plot rather than at one of the axes. And now I can look at information. I may want to get rid of some of this stuff because it's getting a little busy, but I could now look at the orange versus the purple to start to see which of those roller coasters have inversions and if I could make any conclusions like are the faster roller coasters the ones with inversions, or the higher roller coasters, or what is, if you know, what kinds of relationships might exist there as well. So that's, I mean, a very quick, this would take, days to work through some of these lessons and these ideas, but this gives a flavor of what the CODAP tool can do in relation to this data set.
And what's already available for teachers who might want to try to use this in their classroom?
That's a great question. So, let me just, let me just open up a new CODAP window. So if you just type in CODAP, you'll find the website and you can just launch CODAP from there and then just start working in it. And you can open a document or browse examples. So if you are a teacher and you're trying to find some resources and data that's already out there and other people have already spent the time and the hours curating it and getting it ready, you can browse through here. So they have some like tutorials, they have data sets on mammals, roller coasters, seals, other kinds like duck pond is another popular data set that gets at ideas around sampling and sampling variability, and then and starting to bridge some inference ideas. So you can play around with the different data, and they even have these little getting started cards for teachers.
Great, thank you. This is really cool to see in action.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of helpful to start to see what you can and can't do with this. Do we want to go back to Gemini, Ken? Like, what do you think, Elise?
Sure. Yeah.
What do you, okay. Um, so I don't have the data from here, but I can do the prompt that we did again. Um,
Sure, or we can try something new, whatever.
okay, okay. I was curious. Find,
roller coaster data from the United States that has variables such as like top speed, height, heat, drop, length, wooden.
versus steel. I'm just trying to put in as much as was in there to see what it'll pull up. What were some of the other things?
Year opened.
Oh yeah, like year opened, inversions.
I wonder if it's able in the background, like, oh, somebody else just asked this. I don't have to go look it up. I'll just fill up the same table.
How much oh, huh, that's interesting. I guess that was not a very good prompt because it's giving me resources. So is this,
So it's not actually pulling data for you. Can we ask it to like, can you pull 50 data points for me?
But at least, were you using 2.5 Flash or were you using 2.5 something else?
Oh, good question. Mine was the reasoning, math, and code one, the pro.
okay. Should I switch to that?
Oh, but that's the paid. I think there's gonna.
Oh, right.
I
Okay.
ran out of chips faster, but it was free.
But it just costs more, whatever, quote unquote costs more. Oh,
It's
there, it gave us a good
data
table,
now.
and it gave you 50. Great.
Yeah, when I tried this last night, I don't remember what my prompt was, but I only got 15. And then when I asked for more, it gave me 20.
Oh,
So
being really specific in the number that you want.
yeah, yeah. Um, so one of the things I'm thinking too, like if I were a student playing around with this, is just like provide me two graphic or two data visualizations that I don't know, provide a compelling story about the data set. I'm just curious, like what it comes up with on its own if you're just asking for data visualizations.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's working really hard.
Well, I do appreciate that it's doing a Google search, you know. It's got to use its own company's resources.
This is true.
Well, I wonder if I wonder what it's looking for. Is it searching the web for data visualizations that exist?
That could be.
Oh, yeah. Well, oh.
But it did create this.
So it creates so this is what we were looking at, although we looked at inversion rather than steel or wood, but it gives us, oh, that's actually a little.
So it kind of created a three-dimensional graph right from the beginning, which is interesting, right? So it's comparing, just for those podcast audiences who are only listening and not looking at the video. So it created a roller coaster speed versus height by type graph, where it has on the vertical axis is the top speed, and on the horizontal axis the max height, and then it's showing whether it's a steel or wood coaster by using the colors.
And then the second graph is showing inversions. The number of inversions or average number of inversions by coaster type.
Did you hover over the bars? Does it explain any more? Oh, is it by decade?
And decade. I was wondering how it was saying the decade.
Yeah, so the 90s, average inversion 4.56. Fewer inversions in the 2000s and 2010s. And that's interesting.
So the 90s were all about inversions. Wait, this is claiming that there are wooden coasters with inversions?
Yes, it is. I add that same question, Ken. I didn't know.
That scares me.
I didn't know that was feasible.
Is that true? Okay, now I'm very curious about.
I'm
using the CODAP data to see.
And then it goes on and it talks about roller coaster speed versus height by type. It says that this scatter plot demonstrates the fundamental engineering relationship between a coaster's maximum height and its top speed, while highlighting a significant design divergence between steel and wood. And then compelling story, steel coasters defy gravity to chase records. So that's, that is interesting. The chart illustrates a strong positive correlation between the max height and top speed. The higher the drop, the faster the coaster. However, the data points clearly separate the two types. And then it gives some examples like King Dakar, 418 feet and 128 miles per hour. This is interesting though, because we also have a data variable in the CODAP data set of the maximum height for the roller coaster, but also the drop in feet.
Yeah.
And they didn't, because we could also plot the, drop with speed and look at that.
Just to update people, breaking news. Son of Beast, according to the CODAP dataset, is a wooden coaster, and it has an inversion.
Wow, where is that located?
Kings Mills. I don't know what state that's in, though.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
It opened in the year 2000, so Maybe it's part of the whole Y2K thing. Like, well, if the world is ending, why not use a wooden coaster to have an inversion?
I like the historical reference.
We
And
just
then,
lost half the audience. They're like, I don't know.
like what? Um, and then the second, um, they talk about the second graph, average coaster inversions by type and decade, the rise and shift of steel design. Steel coasters move from loops to airtime. What we've kind of already talked about a little bit, that wood coasters have consistently averaged near zero inversions throughout their history. Interesting. Small spikes in the 2000s and 2010s are due to the emergence of Rocky Mountain construction hybrid coasters. They have wooden support structure and they use a steel track that allows for inversion. So it does provide some additional information.
So I'm wondering if a teacher were to use this. So we're not using the guided learning feature of Gemini, but it very quickly goes into answering some of the questions that a teacher might be wanting to ask. And then at that point, I don't know if the students it's almost like copying down information, like, oh, this is the story. These are compelling stories. Here they are, without actually having to sort of evaluate whether it is a compelling story or how you got there. Whereas the CODAP, you have to create your own stories.
Yeah, I think it makes students, they have to spend more time engaged with the data set. So I might not, maybe I think that the length of the roller coaster and the top speed are going to be more related. And then I have to start to compare these two things, right? And ask myself, does there seem to be as strong of a relationship between the length of the roller coaster and the top speed? Or, any of these others. I could look at drop or duration, though there's more missing data from duration. But I think you have to spend some time playing around with it. And I wonder does Gemini prompt, like do sort of scaffolded, I want to give this data set to my students. Please create a set of prompts and questions to guide a lesson that would have students explore mean and median. Let's just start with that.
Well, Jen, that was a great idea, apparently.
I sort of don't love when AI tells me how great my ideas are. I feel like it's not being sincere. So very calculating, like just calculate, identify the best measure. So if I were doing this as a teacher, I might start off asking students which variable they wanted to explore, and then ask them using CODAP to find the mean and median, and ask them what they, which one would they use and why, kind of thing. So I might first let them pick the variables they want to explore, and then have them investigate other variables and think about the mean and median. So
it is an interesting question. So if it's the way that it knows how to ask these or knows how to come up with these questions is by reading thousands of documents, including textbooks. And if all of the texts, or not all, but some vast majority of them, these are the kinds of questions that would be asked in them. So it's just sort of like reproducing this not best practice right? It's just sort of like, well, this is how people do it. Not like this is how people should do it. It's just this is how people do it.
Yes. And I wonder if you are even more specific. So if I was specifically referencing like Holly Lin Lee's InStep, for example, would it give me a different set of prompts that have more sort of inquiry base to them?
What can we try? Like, not that it's, hopefully it hasn't like just sucked up all of their stuff, but I mean, for the good of the world, it might be better, but not for the good of them. Like, like if we were doing an artist thing, like, could you develop a set of questions in the style of, what was it called? InStep?
Yeah.
Like, do you think can we ask?
Yeah.
Or maybe like even, I don't know, in a more inquiry focused manner or something.
Should I reference in?
Sure. Yeah, let's see.
I don't know if it'll recognize.
The question was develop activities or tasks in a more inquiry-focused manner, sort of like InStep.
Well, at least it says it's an excellent approach. I don't know why it didn't use the excellent approach the first time, but
Write a hypothesis about which coaster type will have a higher average max height and a higher average mean top speed is the first task. You notice two coasters, King to Ka and Top Thrill, are significantly faster than all others. How might these two extreme values impact the mean speed compared to the median? Predict the relationship. Will the mean be higher or lower than the median, and why? So that's a much more nuanced question, actually, than, what it initially kind of gave us.
it's not do these calculations as much.
Exactly. So it is modeling after, a more inquiry-based approach, getting students to investigate the data or even predicting.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you were doing a scatter plot of the max speed with the max height with the top speed, you could ask students to predict, like, a new roller coaster just came out with this speed, what's its height going to be or likely to be, or vice versa.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that sometimes, I don't know, well, worries me about it is that if you're not a very experienced teacher, you might not think of prompting it to do this. Or if you just really teachers don't have time to prep in general, but, or if you just didn't have as much time to think about it, and you're supposed to be doing a data science thing, and you just take the first thing because it seems reasonable, right? Like, oh yeah, just calculate the mean and median of the top speed, and then you're done. Which is sort of the same thing that students, I think, will tend to do. You're like, all right, I'm just trying to answer this question. I'm done. And it takes extra effort, and it took some more expertise to know that this is not, you should not be satisfied yet.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're going through, I haven't spent a ton of time, but to me, if I was going to work with teachers using Gemini, I would spend a lot of time playing with this program and thinking about the different prompts, and then thinking about how I would engage teachers with those prompts, or trying to encourage thinking about what it's producing and what that's going to mean for what the students are doing, or the kinds of reasoning they have to think through. And of course, you have to do that in any setting. I think that sometimes we think AI is going to save us from that level of effort, because I still have to think, if I'm a student, especially a middle school student, and this is your first time trying to look at relationships between variables, that may not come as naturally to you. And so you might need some prompts or scaffolding to start doing that. And you may just start with the initial, I'm just going to look at, the max height or the top speed or the length of these roller coasters and just focus on one variable, which is fine. You're learning things doing that way. But then how do you start to prompt students to compare, roller coasters that have inversions with those that don't around these variables or other kinds of factors that you're interested in. But I think if students are engaged in the data set, that's going to come more naturally too. And this allows you to do that, where I think it allows you to do it in a more intuitive way than if you're prompting, if you kind of have to know how to prompt Gemini to create those plots for you. Is it really saving you any time? As opposed to playing around with this and sort of engaging with the data in a more concrete and interactive way?
We were cheating. We knew that CODAP had a data set on roller coasters, but if we'd thought of something different, right? Like if we had a bicycle route descents or something like that around the world, which maybe isn't in the CODAP data set, but maybe would be found someplace on the web. So could we produce a data set and then can we just then pull in the data set, right? And then we would have the CODAP tools. So like Gemini is not good necessarily with playing with the data in this way, but maybe it is good. It did come up with some data set, whether it's completely accurate or not is whatever, a mystery. But, it took like 30 seconds to develop a data set.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And you can, if you could put the data that you got from Gemini into an Excel document, then you can copy it into CODAP. So that's easy enough because teachers can put their own data sets into CODAP all the time and explore them. I think the questions I would have around that, and I don't know if there's a data set you want to go after, we could try it, but I'm thinking about, we didn't spend a ton of time exploring the 50 data points it gave me. And I have 157 in the CODAP. So I think we would have to play around with just find me some data versus find me some data, but get it in this way or get it from these sources or those kinds of things. And then really study what kind of data we're getting. And are we, do we want a random selection? Do we want a purposeful selection, and why or why not in each of those cases? Those are the kinds of questions I would have around just prompting Gemini to get me data. Because I'm sure, I think it can get data and very quickly, but thinking about, especially if this matters, suppose you were looking at trying to get health data, searching, how many hours a night do middle school kids sleep or whatever? How much should they be sleeping? And you were trying to get data on something like that. And there's real implications for lack of sleep or something. Is it getting you the data that's going to be, accurate or unbiased, or what does that look like?
There's all this. Well, maybe for a future episode we can look at it further. Anyway, I think thank you so much for going on this journey with us. I know that folks have to take off soon, but it seems like there's a place for it, but we have to be careful what that place is going to be.
Yeah. No, thank you. This was really fun. This was interesting.
Elise, before you leave, maybe can you give your top takeaway, and then I'll do one with Jen. It's time for TERC Tech Talks top 3 takeaways.
I think a big takeaway for me is that when we just jump into Gemini as our first source, we're kind of ignoring that there's a lot of things that people have worked really hard on to be really excellent teaching tools. And maybe starting to see if there's anything else first before you jump to Gemini. There's a lot of free resources. CODAP is a really great tool. Might be a good place to start versus in AI.
That's great. That was going to be mine.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks.
Oh my God. Well, that's what I get for going first. I'm going to run, but yeah, thank you so much for joining. This was really cool. Now I really want to play around with CODAP. So
thanks, Elise.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, Jen, do you have a different one?
Yeah, I definitely like Elise's takeaway that I think resonates with me. I think another one would just be in sort of thinking through this, the kind of prompting is really interesting to me, and what you get from different kinds of prompts, and how you really have to think through those carefully with the data, and what you're going to get from various prompts. So I think yeah, thinking about those in a way that serves a particular educational purpose, um, I think is something I need to do a lot more thinking about, but it's an important conversation.
Yeah, and I think my takeaway is it might be actually the same. Is that I do worry about how close to reasonable or good it can make you think that you are when maybe we're not really as close. So like when you develop expertise, you can be like, oh no, that's not really what we're going for, right? Like the thing about being inquiry based, like it gave us pretty quickly something that you could imagine creating a worksheet, and that's what the kids are going to do for whatever, an hour, half hour or something. Which is, there's nothing really wrong it's a perfectly normal, not particularly exciting, but it's a normal math activity here. Find the median, find the mean. But that's not really what the essence of data science is, right? Like that's the essence is really figuring out those more interesting questions and the hypotheses. And if you weren't an expert, you might not ever go the next step and think about it, right? So like, how can we be sure that teachers are going to be using expert teacher moves, not just whatever it's going to be in every other textbook for the last 100 years kind of thing?
Right, right. And if it's close enough to whatever kind of textbooks you are using in class, like that may be more procedurally based, then you may be even more likely to stop there, because
Yeah,
it's, in line with what you're seeing in your own resources.
right.
Yeah.
It's maybe more widespread. It's not just in education. So, the whole thing about AI slop is a very popular thing to think about these days. And like a friend who's working in the sort of video production using AI for making videos, his name's Kai Turner. He just did a post a day or two ago on LinkedIn, and sort of his metaphor is using like this thing is that you can use AI to produce fast food, or you can use it to produce fine dining. And obviously, we would all rather have fine dining, because fast food's not really good for you, and it's not particularly exciting, right? We don't want it to just produce the same hamburger and hot dog over and over again, even though that's what it's been trained on. So that's the thing that's a little scary to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's only as good as the data it's been trained on
Yeah.
too, right? So, yeah.
Anyway, well, maybe that's why we should continue to have jobs, is to figure this out.
Hopefully AI doesn't take over for us yet.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. That was really fun.